I was reading a story just before I came on from Reston, Virginia. Josh Kroshower posted this earlier. Channel 7 News has learned the man accused of committing a homicide a day after being released from jail is in the country illegally and has a history of prior charges. The man died after shooting inside his home in Reston, Virginia on Wednesday. The guy was chased well into the night. Turns out he's 23 years old. His name is Morales Ortiz. He's from El Salvador. He had spent most of the past year and a half in jail suspected of another murder. He was released when someone else was convicted. He had been charged for theft, found guilty in that case, found guilty in another case as well. He was released, and $300 fine, never paid. And until this Tuesday, he had been held in jail for allegedly brandishing a gun and assaulting and injuring someone. So they let him out, and he killed someone on Wednesday. And that's in Reston. Now, for those of you who do not know the Beltway, Reston is inside the Beltway. Maybe it's just outside the Beltway. Planned community. It is like Irvine, California, or any other planned community that from the ground up, all the streets are wide, every house has a garage, and it's very expensive, and the schools are good. It's not what you expect Murder Central to be. Now that comes, of course, we had the massacre in Australia on Bondi Beach on Saturday. On Friday, we had the shooting at Brown University, which is getting weirder and weirder, and they still don't have anyone in custody, and they haven't named a suspect. They've released just the goofiest photos of another person who's a person of interest. We had on Tuesday the MIT professor, real brilliant scientist, was shot outside his apartment building. Looked like a condo co-op to me. And nearby witnesses reported that there's a Hanukkah menorah on his floor, but he's not himself Jewish. And a lot of misinformation about that, but someone was laying in wait for him and murdered him. On the Brown murderer, that case is just so odd. I saw pictures today of the classroom, which looks like every other large classroom. It was not a scheduled class. All right, it was a review session for most universities. They have giant introductory courses. This looks like Intro to Econ, freshman, sophomore course where you want to kind of figure out supply and demand. And they have 400 students in it, and they break it into sections. So you get assigned a grad student to kind of go over the nuts and the bolts. The professor will teach the big stuff. Then the grad student will meet with you in a smaller group, and they'll go over the smaller stuff. And so I saw the room. I don't know how you can walk into that with a long gun, and it's been described as being quite a big weapon, shoot 11 people, killing 2 of them, and then disappear. I asked Andy McCarthy yesterday, if you missed it, do you think he's holding someone hostage? Do you think someone is hiding him? Or did he just skedaddle and get out of the country because Providence, Rhode Island, and Brown police are so incompetent? I don't know. I'm not speculating about identity. I do know that nothing is unthinkable. Now, I used to say that a lot after 9/11, 24 years ago. For 2 years, I'd say nothing is unthinkable. And after 9/11, we had the random shooter inside the Beltway, Muhammad and his sidekick, who would drive around Northern Virginia and kill people. And all over the place, in D.C. and in Maryland, everyone was afraid for their life. We had the poison scare. The toxin was in envelopes and showing up all over D.C., and that was a very strange time after 9/11. But now it's just sort of like open season on Jews. So I'm reading the New York Post yesterday. Just this week, a knife-wielding goon stabbed Brooklynite Elias Rosner, a member of the Lubavitch Hasidic community, Monday afternoon in Crown Heights, shouting, "I'm going to kill a Jew today." On Monday night, and I told you about this yesterday, 8 Jewish youngsters were heading back to Chabad Lubavitch headquarters in Crown Heights after a Hanukkah celebration in Union Square when they were attacked by a pair of brutes on the subway. We've had that video. We've shown it to you. In another caught on video encounter, an unhinged patron at Mole Mexican Bar and Grill in the West Village unleashed a frightening verbal assault on a Jewish woman enjoying dinner with a friend on Saturday night. So, you ugly, blanking Zionist, we will rid this country of blanking you by blanking all means, the maniac yelled. Earlier in the day, Rabbi Meir Pape of Jackson Heights, Chabad, discovered that a menorah had been defaced. That's sort of standard fare. So I went back and I started looking. You know, the Tree of Life massacre was in 2018. So it's been 7 years since one guy walked in and murdered all those people in Pittsburgh. He's been tried, convicted, and given the death penalty. He's on death row. He'll have a few more years. He'll eventually be executed. Joe Biden, non-compos mentis, but even his team realized they weren't going to let the mass killer off, or Tsarnaev, the bomber in Boston. There were 50 death row people in the United States, and they commuted the sentence. It wasn't Joe Biden. He had no idea what he was doing, and you know that, and I know that. So you look at all these different things, and I've been asking various people, when is Bondi Beach going to happen in the United States? Because you just keep adding up the onesies and the twosies, and guns are a lot more available in the United States than they are in Australia. If you're a Jew, you might wear your kippah in public, but are you going to go to the menorah lighting in this season of rage and hate? And by the way, it's got nothing to do with Israel. This is classic anti-Semitism. They're not mad about Gaza's ceasefire. They might pretend that it's about Israel and Netanyahu, but it's not. I listened to the most recent Ask Haviv Anything, and he had a good academic on who was trying to explain that anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism is different from classical anti-Semitism. And Haviv was being very polite, but he said, let's just stick to the facts. Here's where Jews are getting killed, have been getting killed, and were killed in the 18th, 19th, and 20th century, now the 21st century. So my friend Kurt Schlichter, who sits in for me, he'll be in for me the week after Christmas, in fact, for a long time has been saying, you'd better get a gun, and you'd better learn how to use it, and if you get a concealed permit, you ought to start carrying. And I'll ask Seth Mandel about that later in the program today. I think if you're a Jew and you're going to go to the Jewish Center and you're going to go to Temple, you know you do have security there already, and that's good, but that's not going to protect you in the parking lot against these crazies, and it's multiplying. What do you do when something like this happens? Well, law enforcement especially has to step up. Far from defunding the police, we have to refund the police and significantly increase their budgets and tell them, I said this 2 days ago, that assault and battery are real deals. If you assault someone, you're going to jail, and we're not letting you go. We're going to get a misdemeanor, felony conviction against you, and whatever that is, 3-6 months, you're going to do the time. We are going to stamp a broken windows theory of anti-Semitism crushing. Any act, any incident, we're going to go. And we're going to get you, we're going to find you, we're going to use the video, you're going to be prosecuted, and you're not going to get bail. Because it's the only way to stamp it out. Because now it's out of the bottle and it's back. It's the ancient evil. It precedes the birth of Christ. It goes back hundreds of years before that. Variety of empires crushed the Jews. The Romans fought 3 wars with the Jews, and they killed 500,000 of them in the third one. The fact that it isn't going away, and Bondi Beach, shocking though it may be, is, I think, a chapter in a book that we're going to hate to read, but we're all going to read it together. And the only thing, and you're welcome to call. I may be able to get calls in one place or another if you disagree, but I don't think you have a choice. Relief Factor. I'm in the Relief Factor studio. I got outside today, got above freezing, so I didn't stay frozen in the house. Got my 4 miles in. Now that normally means after 4 days of not doing anything, I should be a little bit sore tomorrow, but I don't think so because I got my Relief Factor. And I remind you, if you're watching on the Salem News Channel, I take it every day, so you can see me do it. If you're listening on the Salem Radio Network or one of our great affiliates, you hear me do it. And I do it for a simple reason. It works. It's effective. I carry in curcumin and resveratrol and omega. The 3 week starter pack is only $19.95. That's less than $1 a day for 3 weeks. Call 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. 1-800-4-RELIEF. In that first 3 weeks, you take 3 packets a day on the first day of each week, the first week, every day. 2 packets a day the second week, and then you're down to me, like me, 1 packet a day. Give it a try, $19.95, and you can find the starter pack at relieffactor.com. Noah Rothman is the senior writer at National Review. You can follow him on X at Noah C. Rothman. Noah, I began the show by saying that which I used to think was unthinkable is no longer unthinkable. 9/11, we all kind of got over, but that Bondi Beach thing, there aren't any guns in Australia. That's wild. Then on Monday night, a Jewish woman from the Lubavitch Hasidic community was stabbed in Crown Heights. On Crown Heights on Monday night, 8 Jewish youngsters were attacked by a pair of brutes on the subway. Another encounter at the Mexican Bar and Grill. We had the Brown shooting on Friday. We had the professor on Tuesday at MIT. Is this just a string of incidents or different?
Some of them are kind of weird. I mean, you talked about how bizarre the Brown shooting is and the investigation into it, and it would be purely speculative for me to say, well, that's shoddy investigatory work, rather, or if the Brown administrators aren't being especially forthcoming. Either way, it's very strange that we don't have the amount of the evidence that we would typically have for a high-profile shooting like this. And the degree to which people who are observing the investigation are saying they're quote unquote grasping at straws. Some former FBI figure said that to WMMR recently. And when it comes to this shooting of the fusion researcher, there's Israeli sources that maintain that could be a state-sponsored act of assassination, specifically pointing to Iran. Now, that has not been confirmed. It's been reported by the Daily Mail. I can't have no further information around that. But there's a lot of weirdness going on. But briefly, and I don't want to monologue here, Hugh, but to your point earlier, why haven't we seen this sort of Bondi Beach style massacre of Jews in the United States? And is it inevitable? It is not inevitable, because those incidences that would have occurred prior to Bondi Beach in the United States have been foiled 3 times in as many months. We've had massive Islamist militant style attacks foiled in Detroit. There was a Halloween plot in New Jersey with suspicious links to the Detroit plot. We had several individuals who were arrested who were working on behalf of the Islamic State, sending messages to Turkey and Syria with the aim of executing a massacre of Jews at Jewish sites. And then just this week, we had the arrest of a small cell terrorist operation with arrests in New Orleans and Los Angeles. News reports described them as pro-Palestinian activists, which they were, but they also subscribed to the suite of anti-Western philosophies and beliefs that have animated militant left-wing terrorists for the better part of a century now in the United States. Anti-capitalist philosophies, pro-indigenous philosophies, just the whole board of anti-American beliefs. So the fact that it hasn't happened here is due to savvy police work and proactive police work. But one day our luck will run out. It only takes once, and somebody will eventually continue to try to the point where they succeed.
So on the New Year's Day attack was supposed to happen in Southern California. And yesterday, Andy McCarthy said on this program, the good news is that law enforcement at the street level, federal, state, and local, are working together, and the intelligence community is actually working much better with law enforcement than they did prior to 9/11. But I wonder if what would you advise your Jewish friends to do? Should they get a concealed carry if they're competent? And by that I mean they've got to actually be competent. They got to be trained. They got to know what to do with a weapon. But ought they to do that?
I think that's a personal choice. And you can only assess your own relative level of threat and anxiety for yourself. And yes, stress the competence part. You go to a range, you get professional training, you keep your weapons locked up. If you have children, you have a gun safe. I don't have a firearm. I don't especially love firearms. Everybody else in my life does. I think I'm kind of a free rider in my neighborhood because all my neighbors are armed to the teeth, and I think it's relatively obvious from the nature of my neighborhood and the people who live here that You wouldn't want to go searching house to house in this neighborhood, but it's a sort of thing that you can't put out of your mind. So it's a personal choice, and it's not one that I would say you shouldn't or you should, but certainly the heightened threat environment, the deteriorating threat environment, makes this something that all of us have been thinking about for a decade. I certainly have.
What do you think school administrators do in response? I don't know if the guy from Brown has fled the country. There was an attack outside the CIA decades ago, and the guy was in Pakistan in 48 hours. So if it's someone like that and organized with state support, they're gone. Or he could be holding someone hostage, or he could be being hidden by someone. It's just so, it's never happened. 35 years I've been doing this, a mass shooting. They have never not had the perp within 48 hours. That's how
Well,
strange this is.
mass shooting, yeah, I suppose that's true. It did take them almost a week to catch up to Luigi Mangione in Altoona, Pennsylvania, even though we had lots of footage of him and even footage of him uncovering his face. It took a while once you're on the run, so it can happen. But at least there were leads. At least the investigation was, and as far as the public knew in that 5 day period or so, where the investigation was and what the progress was, and there was progress. We've seen nothing like that here. There's very little for us to hang
Oh,
our
it's
hat on.
Keystone
The trail
Cops.
gets
I
colder
don't
and
want to be.
colder.
I don't want to be harsh on the Providence Police, but they're terrible at explaining what they're doing, whatever they're doing.
Yeah. No, I agree. And what they're doing is throwing information out there that makes you less secure that they have anything resembling a lead in this case. We just got news within the last half hour that the second individual who's a person of interest in this case has been identified, not yet publicly named, but identified. But why would you say that if you haven't caught up to him yet? And presuming you have caught up, if you had caught up to him, nobody's alleging, as far as I've seen, that this individual had any material provided material support or was an accessory to this crime, merely that he might know something. But that really does suggest that you don't have anything to go on. And yeah, if this trail gets real cold in a week, 2 weeks, the conspiracy theories that will proliferate around it will be very destabilizing. It's something
Yes.
the conspiracy theorizing has become a national pastime in this country over the course of the last
You
couple of
know,
years. And I was just reading it.
did you watch
I'm
Ben
sorry.
Shapiro's speech at Heritage about Tucker?
I did.
Okay,
I
I
did.
thought it
He
was
did quite
very
well.
good. Defined the boundaries of conservatism, read him
Yeah.
out, and now the attention economy should turn away from him. What about every other attention economy person out there? Should we just not pay attention to them?
Well, listen, the problem isn't the supply. The problem is the demand. There's a market out there for this. I was just reading one of my pieces from the summer of 2021, which is entitled, and I think it holds up well, is entitled Fear the Inflation Induced Paranoia Spiral. When the money in your pocket is worth less today than it was yesterday, a lot of terrible psychological consequences follow from that. Anybody who's studied, for example, Hayek's experience in the interwar period in Austria can attest to the degree to which sane, rational, well-educated, well-cultured individuals succumb to a kind of paranoia that fuels public policies you don't exactly want to understate the case when it comes to the interwar period in the German-speaking countries. But it is
Yeah.
nevertheless, I think, obvious to me over the course of the last 5 years or so that the market for paranoia, in particular for exculpatory paranoia, a theory that relieves you of responsibility or agency for your conditions and puts the blame on somebody else, is very potent. And where that leads you very often is the Jews. Leads
Right.
thinking paranoid thinkers there for 3,000 years in that direction, and it continues to do so.
That is correctly stated. We'll leave it there. Noah C. Rothman, follow him on X. Listen to him on The Editors, the podcast of National Review, and once a week here. Thank you, Noah. Josh Kraushaar is editor-in-chief of Jewish Insider. Josh, after Bondi Beach, after the Brown shooting, after the string of incidents in New York City, including stabbings and assaults on subways, after the MIT professor was shot outside of his apartment building, should more Jews buy guns and carry them where it's legal after they've been trained?
Well, look, I've never heard more conversation within elements of the Jewish community about the need to protect oneself. There's a real fear. I mean, this is open. It feels like it's open season against Jews, and the level of vitriol, the level of hate in person and in social media. Bondi Beach was just a shock to the system, but it was endemic of a no significant rise in vandalism and hate crimes and just nasty anti-Semitic language on a daily basis for Jews in Australia, for Jews in England, for Jews in the West. Thankfully it's a little bit better, I think, in the United States than in some of the Western capitals, but it's getting worse here too. And I think a lot of folks in a lot of Jewish leaders are worried about what's going to happen in New York City. Mamdani taking office at the beginning of the new year. So there was, in fact, a story that we just published about Mamdani's one of his top officials that he named to be his director of appointments had a string of social media posts quoting or talking about money-hungry Jews, and she was appointed nonetheless, despite that history. So again, this is the kind of thing that used to be discrediting for anyone in politics, for anyone in public life, really. And you see what it leads to. We saw what it led to in Australia, but the murder in Washington, D.C. Two Israeli embassy staffers were killed because of this extremist rhetoric and ideology. So it's pretty scary. And I think what's more alarming, Hugh, to the point about carrying weapons to protect oneself, is that this has become normalized. People are not speaking out against this rise of extremism and anti-Semitism that has just become so commonplace in the West.
But my friend Kurt Schlichter would say, buy more guns and ammo. And I am not a gun person, right? I lack coordination and training, and I just can't do it. But I wonder, at someone your age, and if you've got a family to protect, has the thought crossed your mind, and do you talk about it at synagogue with people?
Well, I think it depends on where you live and the safety if you live in the city and the rules and every the different regulations. In fact, Australia, Hugh, has one of the strictest gun regulation laws of any country.
Well, let me pause it. You posted the story about the Reston murder. Now, my sister-in-law and nephews and niece grew up in Reston. It's like Mayberry with better street planning. It's not violence capital of the world, right? And a 23-year-old illegal immigrant goes in and home invasion maybe and kills the guy?
Well,
after he got out of jail?
I mean, look, a lot of this is not just true of the Jewish community. Certainly, it's anyone who lives in any metropolitan area. The fact that this is a guy who was apparently arrested numerous times and let out of jail and not prosecuted. I mean, that's been so many of the issues in New York City are these repeat offenders that they don't have to deal with bail and they get out back on the streets and they reoffend and then they commit violent crimes. I mean, that is basic. In Fairfax County, there was a Democratic primary where a mainstream Democrat, tough on crime, got ousted from by a very, very progressive, very left-wing candidate who's been loosening the penalties for some of these crimes, and I think that's a really big factor in that one situation in a very idyllic part of Northern Virginia.
Now, we know that affordability will be the number one issue next year, but what about police? Because it seems to me refunding the police, expanding police funding, and encouraging them to dive deeper into infiltration and surveillance of bad guys is on the ballot. At least it is for me.
Well, look, it's interesting within the Democratic Party, Hugh, that Democrats have already dealt with that issue in some cities, like Los Angeles, San Francisco in particular. The moderates actually took control of the party, and they actually ousted a very hard left DA and a mayor who was very much from the progressive wing of the party. And when it came to issues of law and order, New York is probably
Bodine in London.
Process.
Yeah.
Yeah, but New York, I was going to say New York with Mamdani taking over. I mean, I think the policies and if he changes and tries to loosen penalties for crime, there's going to be a real life impact, and I think that's going to be. I mean, we'll see how he works with the NYPD chief in Tisch, but there's going to be a lot of real life implications that are going to affect our politics.
I just had a young writer friend move up there, and I thought it was great because you're going to work for a great organization. But you couldn't get me to move to New York right now. The cost of living there. There's a story today in the Manhattan Institute about thousands of empty apartments because of the rents they would be obliged to charge if they put them on the market. They're way under upkeep. He can drive that city under in 2 years.
Hugh, people vote with their feet, and you're seeing an exodus, a migration internally with the redder states, Texas, Tennessee. That speaks volumes about where people want to live.
Josh Kraushaar, always good to talk to you. Follow him on X at Josh Kraushaar. Joined by Eliana Y. Johnson, editor-in-chief of the Washington Free Beacon, contributor to the Commentary Podcast. Eliana, good to have you. I got to say, Fabulous episode of commentary today. John's remarks about his father were heartfelt. I want to, though, zoom into what you had to say about I'm not surprised that your dad kept every issue of commentary. First of all, that was not a surprise. Probably like five shelves worth of commentary magazine. But you mentioned how when you arrived at your college, you were well defensed because you'd been reading magazines. And I grew up on National Review and added commentary in college. But I'm curious, that's not there anymore. I don't know that teenagers read magazines anymore, do they?
Well, you're kind of asking the wrong person, Hugh. But what I in that my kids are little, so I have a sense of what young kids are doing, but I don't have a great sense of what teenagers are up to. But I think like we know that reading books is declining, and by extension, print magazines are declining. And I would say it's not just magazines that I was exposed to. I would go to school and hear my teachers saying, this or that left wing thing. I remember, when I was in 10th grade, I had a teacher, a history teacher, who said Winston Churchill was a very arrogant man, and he even wrote a book called The History of the World According to Winston Churchill. And it just sounded wrong to me. So I came home and said to my dad, like, the history teacher said today that Winston Churchill was very arrogant. And that was basically the extent of the teachings that we got on Winston Churchill. And so my dad said to me, like, you should read this or that on Churchill. I don't even remember what it was.
Probably the history of
And
the English-speaking peoples. Four
and
volumes and one of the best things, which won the Nobel Prize for Literature.
but he would say, like, you should look at this book, or you should look at that book, or you should read this article in a magazine. So it wasn't just magazines, but there were lots of books and magazines around. And I just think not only is that declining, but kids' attention is declining. Their
Well,
ability
that
to actually get from beginning to end of a book is declining, and that's concerning because books are good.
now I'm considerably older than you. I'm your dad's age, but I grew up with Time Magazine, Sports Illustrated, National Review, and then commentary. Other magazines were in the house as well. I don't know that we get any magazines now because I read everything online, and I don't think kids can pick something up, nor would they be inclined to do so because they got this right. They got their cell phone to go to.
They have that, and then you can see that things are fed to them. The swipe is extremely potent and distracting. X is organized in a scrolly, swipey fashion. Instagram is the same, and YouTube is designed for kids to move on very quickly from one thing to another. And it does something to a young person's brain that prevents it from being able to sit down and follow a long narrative from beginning to end. And I can see the struggle, for young people in even watching a movie, a long Disney movie, 60 to 90 minutes. It's more difficult for kids, than it was when I was young, which granted
Now,
is a long
Eliana, I
time
want to
ago,
switch
but all
topics on
these
you.
things are getting harder.
After Bondi Beach and after Brown, and after the shooting of the MIT professor and the serial number of attacks over the last 3 days in New York and Crown Heights, do you think Jews ought to buy guns and carry them where legal?
Well, sure. I do, but I wouldn't limit it just to Jews. I think people of all good conscience should all people of good conscience should be thinking about protecting themselves and protecting other innocent people. And what comes to mind, Hugh, is the I believe Lebanese Christian in Australia who stopped the Bondi Beach attack. He was unarmed, but all citizens of good conscience should be thinking about how they could stop an attack like that and what they would do in that situation. That's certainly been on my mind. And we don't know anything right now about what motivated the Brown University attack, but certainly watching the law enforcement authorities speak before the cameras does not inspire confidence and makes one think like that you need to be protecting yourself and others
Yeah,
that you care about, other innocent people. It is petrifying to watch these people speak before cameras.
do you think the Bureau has stepped back because they botched Charlie Kirk's assassination so badly at the beginning in communication that they're waiting until they know what they're doing? Because they're not at any of these pressers. They have not been. The special agent in charge in Providence is not there, or he hasn't spoken. You think they've been reeled in?
I have no idea what's going on, but there seem to me so many open questions here. I mean, the latest I've read out of Providence is, the whoever, let's see who it was who said, um, the Providence police chief, who's been out there speaking about this, Oscar Perez, saying he could be anywhere. We don't know where the person is or who he is. Um, and yesterday saying that law enforcement officials have not interviewed um, the other students in the classroom, all of the other students in the classroom who survived. I mean, I'm speechless. How can this be?
And I'm speechless. He was shouting something. They won't tell us that, and they haven't done the interviews, and their camera work is bad. It's just a utter fiasco. And if Brown's that way, what do you think about other universities? Because Brown's got a lot of money.
Hugh, one thing on that, I suspect, I don't know, so this is speculation, but I suspect that there's going to be a bigger story about why there weren't more cameras here. Why? What happened there? And so that's something that I'm looking at closely and following closely and really wondering about. And why don't we know what the guy yelled? Why haven't authorities?
There is no explanation for that. That is simply, it reminds me of the Nashville killer. They did not want to relieve the killer's diaries because they were in an indictment of trans meltdown, and so they kept them hidden for a long time. But eventually, all will come out, and eventually, everything hidden will be made public. Eliana Y. Johnson, follow her on X, read her at the Free Beacon, listen to her on the Commentary Podcast most mornings. I'm going to do a double flip here. First, I'm going to ask you for money, then I'm going to tell you how to save it, and then I'm going to tell you how to spend it. Number one, Angel Tree. We have 7 days left in the Angel Tree campaign, which we're glad that they sponsor every year, because there are 1.5 million children who depend upon Angel Tree. To have any Christmas at all costs $30 a child. Many of you have made a mental commitment to do that. Please call 888-206-2764 and follow through. 888-206-2764. Whether it's 30 or 60 or 90, 1, 2, or 3 kids, or more. You do hundreds of kids like Jan and Carol did. But whatever it is, whether it's $15 because that's all you've got, thank you in advance. The banner's at the top of HughHewitt.com. Those kids get a present, a Bible, a note from mom or dad behind bars, talking to them about Christmas and the gift that they're getting, and they get connected to Angel Tree. It's a life changer. Thank you in advance for your generosity. Tax deductible, of course. How do you save money? Consumer Cellular. 1-800-411-4454. My code is Hugh. That will get your second month free. 1-800-411-4454. Or you can go directly to consumercellular.com/Hugh. Consumercellular.com/Hugh. You probably don't know how much data you're using. You probably may not even know what you're paying if you've got automatic bill pay. Don't lose that money. Go reclaim that money. Go call at 1-800-411-4454. It takes less than 20 minutes to switch a cell phone carrier and save a lot of money. Look at the actual cost of your plan. Forget the free phone that they're offering you. That gets priced in. Just right now, for a limited time only, you get the second month free with me. And for you who are over 50, 2 unlimited lines for $60. Unlimited data. 2 lines, $60. Takes 20 minutes to switch. You keep your number, keep your data. 1-800-411-4454 and get your second month free using the promo code Hugh. Now, how to spend it. BestHotGrill.com. You have 7 days left. I think Rhett and Irene can get you the grill. Call them, go online, Take a look at the 5 different sizes of the Solaire infrared grill. Best grill made in America. I've got one here. I've got one on the West Coast. Dwayne's got one. If you're buying for yourself, go get the mother of all grills right there at the end. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, but if you're buying for a client, they got a couple of sizes. One is the small hibachi, one is the medium hibachi. They got grills in between. The Solaire infrared grill just heats up in a minute. So even if it's freezing outside, you don't have to get cold. But your meat, your fish, all your grilled items, they'll be done to perfection. BestHotGrill.com, American made. They've been making them for decades and decades. And you can trust Rhett and Irene to deliver the very best product in the world. BestHotGrill.com. Don't go anywhere, America. When I come back, I'm going to talk with Brinker Harding. Brinker is running for the open seat in Nebraska 2nd. He's a real Republican. I'm not too sure about the 4 who put their name. I offered Mike Lawler's spots today. They declined. Look, the 2026 campaign is already underway. I think the Republicans lost 4 seats yesterday. I've told you about that already with the vote on the discharge petition or the decision to sign it. But we could hold on to one in Nebraska, Nebraska 2, where Don Bacon has held on to that seat by percent over many, many years. And Brinker Harding wants to replace him. He's on the Omaha City Council. He joins me now. Hi, Brinker. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, Hugh, and welcome to Ground Zero for control of the House Majority.
It's going to come down to the wheat fields, I'm afraid. Brinker, I was looking at your bio. You've been on the Omaha City Council for 8 years. I had a law partner who was on a city council for 12 years. I thought he was nuts. People find you, right? They want their trash picked up. How do you like being on the Omaha City Council?
Well, I truly enjoy it. Before I was on the Omaha City Council, I worked for Hal Daub when Hal was mayor of Omaha. And so I knew what I was getting into. I truly enjoyed doing it. But I think the next step is really where I can bring the most to the district.
You've already got Senator Deb Fischer on your side. When will the primary be?
The primary is in May. And yes, go ahead.
I mean, that's soon. That's an early primary.
The primary is May, and then obviously in November, after we win in May, we'll be on the ballot in November.
So tell me what is a primary issue in Nebraska? Most times when you're in a city council person is running, housing comes up, affordability comes up, but what's driving the metrics in Nebraska?
I think you hit exactly those 2. Affordability is certainly the number one issue, how the economy is going. And what's really interesting, Hugh, about affordability is I think we need to talk more about this. Affordability isn't just about the lowering of the prices, because as we know with inflation, prices usually don't come back. So what we need to do is work on growing the economy, growing wages. That's how we make it more affordable.
Do you have a housing shortage in Omaha?
Absolutely we do. And you know what's interesting too is just recently we had an issue in front of the city council, and this is a great example of how regulations get in the way of affordability, is that the state of Nebraska adopted the electrical code. The city of Omaha had to adopt a code as well. Usually what you do is you mirror what the state does. The state had 5 amendments taken out of the electrical code, the national code, had nothing to do with safety. It just added, though, about anywhere from $800 to $1,500 per house. And every time you add $1,000 to the price of a house, new construction house, you take out over 500 potential buyers. So what we want to do here is eliminate those needless regulations that just make it less affordable for people to achieve the American dream.
Now, Senate Majority Leader Thune was on the program yesterday, Brinker, and they have housing bills in the pipeline for 2026. I was a land use lawyer till I retired in 2016, did it for 30 years. It's always about density, and it's about regulatory cost that gets passed on to the buyer and spread out over 30 years. It's crazy what I saw city councils do. Do you have a pro-growth city council majority?
Unfortunately, we do not. It's officially nonpartisan, but there are 4 Democrats on there and three of us, 3 on the good side. So we are constantly fighting that battle. But look, Hugh, that's why I'm on city council. That's why I want to run for Congress. I know the battle that needs to be fought, and I'm willing to pick up the mantle and do it. And
now, how much does it cost to run in a primary? Go ahead, Brinker.
Well, I was going to say on the affordability issue, there's a group here in Omaha called Welcome Home, and they've put a study together that showed, again, this is on the housing affordability, they showed that 25 to 30% of the cost of a newly constructed home is wrapped up in regulations. Now, I'm not here to say all regulations need to go away, but there are certainly some that do need to go away that are onerous, have nothing to do with safety, but just needlessly add to the cost of a home. And that's the battle we're fighting.
Amen. Brinker, I got to tell you that when I talk to Midwesterners, I always have to remember they stop the moment I say, whereas people from New York roll right over me and people from California don't pay any attention to me, but the nice, polite people in the Midwest stop immediately and said, I want to know how much money it costs to run in the primary and the general, and I assume your website's just brinkerharding.com?
Brinkerharding.com, and you took it away from me. I was going to start at the top here with the needless, shameless plug of people can learn more about me by going to brinkerharding.com.
Oh, you got to be more shameless than that. You need money. Whenever I have a congressional candidate on, they need money.
Absolutely. And that's it's interesting. The day I got into this race on July 1st of this year, it was soon after Congressman Bacon had started making a little noise about that he was thinking about not running for re-election. And so after talking about it with my family, I put my team together, which is really important. I want to talk about this. It's really important to talk about the team for this district, because you need to have that group that understands the district better than anyone else. And that's exactly the people I have working for me. These are the same people that have worked on all my city council campaigns at one time or another. They're the same people that ran Deb Fisher's campaign the last cycle and Don Bacon's campaign the last cycle. We need the people that understand the district better than anyone else on that team. And I've completed that team by having the same fundraising group that I've worked with, Jay Best, more plugs, and also a combination of Fisher people and Bacon people for polling, for data, and for our media. That's how important
Very
this race
few
is.
people have the stature with me as Deb Fisher does. She actually knows national defense. She's a very strong proponent of national defense. What interests you when you get to the Congress if you win through?
A couple of things, but let me back up just a minute too about Senator Fisher, because she put her name on the line on day one when she endorsed me, and that means an awful lot to me. And I had other people jump in right away, and I think that's a great visual, sends a great message when you have people like former Governor Heineman, Senator Fisher, former Mayor of Omaha, Hal Daub, as well as the Honorable Mayor Stothert. Those people were, and Kathleen Kauth, who I think you met at the ALEC conference, and is basically, I think, why I'm sitting here today with the endorsement of Jim Smith and Kathleen Kauth.
Well, I'll tell you, keep coming back, and I'm very glad to have you. And what I told Kathleen, I hope she told you, city councilmen actually have to do things. That's what makes them good candidates. They don't get to hide in the legislature. In Omaha, they have to go out and answer the phone calls and make the police budget work and add officers and subtract ambulances. How many years you been doing it?
I'm in my 9th year right now, but you're right. It's all about accountability and accessibility. That's what I'll be in Congress as well. Accountable and
Brinkerharding.com. Go check him out. Give him some contribution. You can trust Eb Fisher. Senator Fisher knows what she's doing. Brinkerharding.com. Brinker, I'll talk to you in the new year. Merry Christmas, and thank you for joining me today. I did find out about Brinker at the American Legislative Exchange Council. They're a great client of mine, ALEC. ALEC.org/Hugh if you want to get the State of the States newsletter. When I go to those conventions 1 or 2 times a year, there are 1,000 state legislators and a variety of industries that work with state legislators, and I get smarter every time. And when I go there and I meet, how else am I going to find out about anything about Nebraska? Seriously, I've never been to Nebraska. They're a homecoming team for Ohio State. That's what I know. I didn't say that to Brinker. I wouldn't want to be that mean. But I've never been there. But I got a earful from Kathleen that this is the guy. He's smart. He works hard. He'll raise money. And by the way, Senator Fisher likes him. So, okay, let's get him here. But that's why you should belong to ALEC if you're a state legislator. ALEC.org, ALEC.org. Well, I have you as well. Angel Tree, 7 days till Christmas. They'll work up until Christmas night. They'll be getting kids off that list. That list is $1.5 million long. I can't do it in $1.5 million kids. That would take $30 million. But we can take 1, 2, 10 off right now if you will call up the phone number at 888-206-2764, 888-206-2764, or go to the Angel Tree banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. We're running out of time, and I thank you for thinking about that. Finally, don't forget, I'm in the Relief Factor studio. Go and get your Relief Factor before you get in the car to drive home. Take it like I did in hour number 1. Finally got warm in the Beltway again. I don't know what the weather is wherever you are. Probably out in California, it's pretty nice. Down in Florida, it's pretty nice. Up in Maine, I wouldn't want to be there. But whether you're working out indoors or outdoors, if you take Relief Factor, you'll feel better after and during and before. $19.95 for a starter pack, 3 weeks. All you have to do is call 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief and say, I want the starter pack. That's less than $1 a day. Or you just go right to their website, relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Whether you're exercising or aging, and you're definitely doing the latter, and you should be doing the former, don't wait another day. Just go over to relieffactor.com and get involved in the game. What's my scorecard, Adam? How much time do I have? How many time? Oh, okay, relieffactor.com. Local news outlets in New England are reporting at this hour that after days of denials, a new report says law enforcement are now investigating a possible link between the Brown mass shooting and the murdered MIT professor. From WPRI.com, Target 12 News, senior law enforcement officials tell Target 12 that federal, state, and local authorities are now examining potential connections between the two crimes. Multiple people familiar with the investigation said they have discovered evidence showing the two may be linked. Now, I've told you the MIT professor was not Jewish, but he lived in a building with a menorah. And we are told the shooter in Rhode Island was shouting something. So we really don't know, but MIT and Brown are about an hour drive, right, folks? Live in New England? I've only been to Providence a couple of times. I have to talk to my friend Kim about that, but you could get up to that pretty quickly, but that's just weird. There's also a story which Eliana mentioned earlier that might be state sponsorship behind the MIT hit, so we just don't know. I will keep you posted when and if that press conference gets underway. I want to remind you about AndrewandTodd.com, and the reason is inflation came in at 2.7% today, lower than expected. Core inflation, 2.6%, lower than expected. Look, they're missing a month of data, so they're not really sure. But economists were expecting 3.2%, so they're expecting 0.5% higher. And it's at 2.7%. Fed's not moving, but if that continues, that trend continues, interest rates will come down. But I'm here to tell you, don't wait. Call up AndrewandTodd.com right now, 888-888-1172. I've known Andrew Del Rey for 25 plus years, in a Bible study with him for that long. Was talking to him yesterday at length in the study, not about mortgage rates. I've known Todd Avakian, his colleague, half as long. They're with Union Home Mortgage. That's a bank. They are actually the lenders. They underwrite the loan. They qualify you for the loan. They tell you how much house or apartment or condo you can afford to buy. And then they put you in their system. And when interest rates drop, if they drop, they will refinance you when it makes sense for you to refinance, usually at least a half point, sometimes 3/4 of a point down. But first, you got to call them. 888-888-1172. 888-888-1172. Right now, I want to play for you Harry Anton on CNN talking about, we did lose 4 seats yesterday. 4 Republicans put their signature to this idiot discharge petition for a 3-year extension of the Obamacare subsidies, which will never pass, shouldn't pass, is bad law. They were preening. They're going to lose because Republicans aren't going to support them. I've extended Mike Lawler an opportunity to come on the show, and they declined today. I think they know they made a mistake. If I were them, I'd get in front of a camera pretty soon and say, you know what, I've thought again. I made a mistake. I can't take my name off of it, but I'm going to vote against it when it comes up because it's a bad idea. It's a bad bill. I was just mad because we didn't move fast enough to fix health care. There are ways out of this. First rule hold, stop digging, Mike and the Pennsylvania trio. Stop digging. Apologize. I don't know if you can take your name off the discharge petition. Sarah Bedford didn't think so. And just stop digging. Here is Harry Enton.
That's right now.
Yeah, I mean, Democrats in the minds of the American public are lower than the Dead Sea. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look. The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress, you said it, Kate Baldwin, the lowest ever. Look at this. Overall, they are 55 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%. It's even worse when you look at independents. Look at this. Negative 61 points. That means that their approval rating is 61 points lower than their disapproval rating. Quinnipiac has been polling this question for the better part of the 21st century. They have never found Democrats, at least those in Congress, in worse shape than they are right now.
That's independents and overall, but what about Democrats on Democrats?
Yeah, what about Democrats on Democrats? So part of the reason overall is so low is independents are driving it low. But that's not the only reason it's so low. What about Democrats on Democrats? Democrats' net approval rating of congressional Democrats. I want you to keep in mind, they had never rated Democrats negatively until this year. And right now, what are we talking about? We're talking about a net approval rating from Democrats. This is Democrats on Democrats. Their approval rating is actually lower than the disapproval rating, and that is quite the drop.
Do you know why this is? They should not have lied about Joe Biden. They should not have lied about Joe Biden. I'll say it again. They should not have lied about the condition of President Biden. They should not have force-fed Vice President Harris without an open process. They should not have run the ridiculous weaponization campaign against Donald Trump. They did everything wrong, and the American people are not dumb. They also remember the Biden inflation, 9% at one point. Those high prices, they're still paying them. The rate of inflation is slowed, and the rate of wage increase has gotten higher. In fact, last night, Donald Trump announced this, cut number 4.
After years of record-setting falling incomes, our policies are boosting take-home pay at a historic pace. Under Biden, real wages plummeted by $3,000. Under Trump, the typical factory worker has seen a wage increase of $1,300. For construction workers, it's $1,800. For miners, we're bringing back clean, beautiful coal. It's $3,300. And for the first time in years, wages are rising much faster than inflation.
And the best part of last night's speech, I don't know if you listened to it at 9 o'clock at night. You might have been watching, your favorite streaming show. But President Trump made an announcement, cut number 3, which I wholly applaud.
Proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776.
That is a very good idea. There would be no United States of America if there was not a United States military. They serve, many of them are far, far away from home this Christmas and Hanukkah season. This New Year celebration will be out without mom or dad or son or daughter because they're serving far away. 2 came home after being killed by Syrians, an innocent civilian as well, killed by Syrians this week. The dignified transfer of remains was yesterday. And I think the president is right. Celebrating our 250th birthday with a $1,776 check makes a lot of sense to me. Finally, let me tell you about Conservatives for Lower Health Care Costs. Their website is pharmawindfall.com. President Trump is taking on the drug companies. He's bringing down drug prices. He's adding in most favored nation demands on all pharmaceutical production. Whatever you sell your drug for at the lowest price abroad, you got to sell it for here in the United States. Jaw rather than war, but he's getting it done. And our friends at Conservatives for Lower Health Care Costs want him to be supported. That's why they're running pharmawindfall.com. End of the year, I thought it was going to be an explosion of legislation. It's not happening, but let's stand in the gap, make sure that pharma doesn't walk off with another bag of loot. Go to pharmawindfall.com right now. Sign up to join President Trump in standing up to the big pharmaceutical companies. pharmawindfall.com. I'm joined by John McLaughlin, one of the country's leading pollsters. He works for Americans for Balanced Budget, including many other groups, and he's been following the tax credits for healthcare insurance debate. John, good afternoon to you. How goes the debate in the Hill? Is anything going to happen in 2025?
Well, I think this year, well, the one thing is, the Democrats, they certainly want to blow up any solution because they're just interested in trying to win November. At the same time, you've got people that, I mean, we know that the healthcare tax credits are popular, 70 to 20. We know that the Republicans want to create reforms so that consumers have the ability to shop for more competitive health insurance. And President Trump himself has said he'd like to give the money to consumers directly and let them pick what type of health care they want. He supports like health savings accounts, et cetera. So, helping working people buy health insurance so that they have their own health insurance, they don't have to go to Medicaid or government-run health care. It's important, and you have a lot of people whose employers don't pay for health care. So you got people working 2-3 jobs sometimes. They need to buy health care. They go to the insurance marketplace. There's over 20 million people that fall into that category, and they use the healthcare tax credits, which again, in this survey that we did in mid-November of 800 likely voters for next year in 16 targeted congressional districts, 70 to 20 they support the healthcare tax credits. So
now, Iowa Congresswoman Meeks put forward a series of reforms which included a very targeted tax credit, not the 3-year extension of the massive subsidy. I think it got through the House, but I don't think there's enough time left in this year to do anything. Is there, John?
No, probably not. I'm not, you know more about Congress than I do. I take polls and follow elections. And you can see the Democrats, I mean, a lot of the Democrats would like the whole system to collapse because they're talking about Medicare for all, which is a euphemism for government-run health care. They want to be able to tell you, when you can get an MRI, when you can get care. I mean, you'll have a Canadian-style system if these Democrats are successful, where the government will be your doctor, and they'll ration health care, and you'll have a system like Canada where you just can't get treatment for cancer when you want. You have to wait, and it could be fatal. So
John, I just played a clip of Harry Enton. Democrats are underwater approval rating, negative 55%, the lowest they've ever measured. Why do you think that is?
Because they have no solutions, and I think a lot of it's Donald Trump. He's exposed them. They basically represent an agenda that is very unpopular. And Republicans, I mean, I loved working for President Trump all through presidential campaigns, started advising him way before it. And he likes to play offense. He goes after his opponents. And when you look at the Democrats, for example, they're trying to talk about affordability. Every Democrat in the Senate and in Congress voted for the largest tax increase in history when they voted to let the Trump tax cuts lapse. What's affordable about a $4.5 trillion tax increase that would have cost every American $2,000 or $3,000 more on top of 4 years of Biden inflation? Nothing. So now you're getting, so Harry's right in terms of the Democrats. They stand for very unpopular things. They stand for open borders, illegal immigration, higher taxes, higher inflation, more government spending, and government-run healthcare. We need a contrast election this year. We could win like we did in 2002 when we picked up 8 House seats and 2 Senate seats. We got to hold them accountable. I think President Trump has a great idea to have a convention. We should have a platform, get all the Republicans to sign on, just like we did in 2024, and we'll win on the issues.
People can go to lowerhealthcarecosts.com, lowerhealthcarecosts.com to get involved in this. But I also think some Republicans blew themselves up yesterday, John, when they signed on to the Democratic discharge petition. What's your counsel to them? Apologize quickly?
No, I think what you saw is We saw as Congressman Law and 3 Congress representatives from Pennsylvania. They were making they're trying to get the Democrats to compromise. The Democrats aren't compromising. So I at this stage of the game, Republicans are standing firm that they want certain health care reforms. In fact, by the way, when you look at uh, Americans for Lower Health Care Costs, they took a poll with us just released December 5th, and you got 1,600 likely voters with 73% support President Trump's. They approve of his policies to they have this most favored nation plan that whatever the lowest drug prices are overseas, that's what they got to charge here.
We talked about that last night. Caught my ear along with the 1776 bonus for everyone on active duty military. John, always good to see you. John McLaughlin, who's doing polling for Americans for Lower Healthcare Costs. Thank you, John. Seth Mandel joins me from Israel. Good morning, evening, whatever time of day it is, Seth. I have no idea. What time is it there?
It's evening. It's nighttime. It's about 9:15.
Okay, well, good evening to you then. Seth, I listened to the commentary podcast today, and it was a wonderful tribute to Norman Podhoretz with John involved and everybody making their comments. What I kept thinking to myself was Norman Podhoretz was a man of extraordinary courage because he fought with the communists when the left was communist. Then he fought with the left when it was just anti-war. Then he fought with the people who wanted their eyes to be shut. Do you think there are people like him around now who will fight with the parallels to those foes domestically?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we talked a bit about Ben Shapiro today, just because Ben was willing to criticize his own side and in the way that Norman was, and so that is in the same tradition. I don't know if there are people on the left right now besides the John Fettermans of the party who are willing to do that. But it's also, there's been a real change in the influence of intellectual magazines and stuff like that. That I don't know if they're reading that stuff on the left the way they used to, the way they did when Norman Podhoretz was an opinion magazine editor on the left. I mean, I know that, we are reading this stuff, and I know that we're on the right, we're dealing with our own internal issues, and I think that we're having a conversation about it and, trying to find some resolution to it. But I don't know who the people are that they are listening to most on the left, and that would really answer the question, because if there's somebody in that
it's actually
specific...
I listened to Ben's speech, and he read Tucker out of the conservative movement, saying there have got to be boundaries. He doesn't believe in these things. He's not a conservative. Even if he persuades everybody that he's right, and he is right, Tucker's not a conservative. It doesn't matter, because there aren't channels to which he can be denied. It's a direct-to-customer media now. And what Norman risked was his livelihood, right? People wouldn't take his articles, wouldn't buy his books, wouldn't give him assignments to write. He put it on the line. In the attention economy, as Mary Catherine Ham calls it, there really isn't any risk for people to take a heterodox or orthodox position. There's no way to disintermediate someone from a market.
Yeah, I mean, there are I'm not that I'm advocating for this, but I think it makes a difference if you were banned from Twitter X. I'm not saying somebody should, but I do think that there are some channels that are so good at reaching the public, and without them, you will see a real drop in those interactions. But at the same time, you could, to play devil's advocate with myself, I could say, hey, Nick Fuentes has been banned from everything and except Rumble. And so he went on Rumble and he built a huge audience on Rumble. So there is something to say for the fact that there's always an alternative these days. And there really is a way, almost always a way, to get unfiltered, direct contact with the audience.
Now you just named the name. I have adopted the point of view on this program. There's some people I will not talk about or entertain discussions of because they're hate-filled,
I'll put $1 in
monsters.
the jar.
Yeah, put $1 in the jar. But do you think my approach which is to deny attention to the people who depend upon the attention economy, is it going to work?
It can. Again, there are very few channels in the attention economy that are big enough that can really shut somebody out. X, YouTube, those are the two major ones that come to mind. But, there's always a way around it if you really can, find a way to talk to people, to your fans, if they know where to find you. And so once you get big enough, then people always know where to find you. So that I think that there's a way to sort of escape that when you're big enough, when you're up and coming. That's when a movement would try to set the guardrails a bit and not enable somebody to get to the point where they're unstoppable in that sense. I think you have to get big enough, but otherwise.
You're right.
People rely on, it's like there's all these arguments on X at times where people say, older journalists say, oh, you should get off X, it's bad for you. And then the younger journalists will say, well, you built your career getting your stuff out on X. You're in a position now where you can say, I'm just going to go to, Bluesky or whatever. And so there really is a period of time in your career where you need access, and other people do hold the key to it.
And there's also my belief that unless you are a writer, people don't take you seriously. Unless you write things that are published in places that are respected, you don't really get traction. So I hope that's the case. What I began the program with today was a monologue that goes back to my monologue 2 days ago after Bondi Beach sunk in. But it's a different one, which is absolutely nothing should be unexpected. That people who are concealed carry people, they got to start carrying their concealed weapons. I'm not one of them because I would be a danger to everyone. But I think that absolutely nothing is unexpected after Brown, Bondi Beach, the MIT professor getting shot outside of his house. Do you feel that way, Seth?
I think that in Bondi Beach, it's very difficult to get that concealed carry license in the first place, right? So part of the trouble with their response being to focus on gun control is that the good guys already don't really have the guns there, and I don't know what the community could do to protect itself, and that's also why people are so angry at the Albanese administration and the Australian government overall, because they don't allow people to protect themselves, right? That's the downside of that.
But America, how about the States?
In the States, I think people should.
I mean, in the United States, we got about 45 seconds. Do you think Jews, especially, or people going to Jewish places of gathering, have got to get armed?
I think they should at least consider it. And where I am located in the States, in Maryland, there's been a huge uptick. There's been a big uptick in New York and the area. I think Jewish communities are definitely starting to think that way, sure.
It seems to me the inevitable repercussions of the police and federal security services' failure to end jihadism and keep track of it. Seth Mandel, safe travels home. Follow him on X at Seth Mandel. Hear him on Commentary Podcast and weekly here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. The Australian Broadcasting Company appears to be as left-wing as the BBC. They have a host named Sarah Ferguson, and she invited the former Treasurer of Australia, Josh Frydenberg, to come on and talk about the Bondi Beach shooting. And here's how that went, cut number 12.
It's widely viewed as inevitable that you will return to politics. How do we not see this through a political lens? I mean, the case that you're making, a personal case against the Prime Minister.
I'm deeply offended by what you just said. I'm deeply offended.
Explain that.
And you know what?
Mm-hmm.
There was a man called Murray Watt who sits on the Labor front bench who tried to say that about a year ago. And then Labor ministers like Mike Kelly and others, hear me out, who came out and said exactly what I'm about to say, which is that is an insult. That is an insult to say that there's any political motivation in this.
It's a question.
No, Sarah, the reality is this. I'm an Australian who has to have personal security because my life is endangered in this country. and I was the treasurer of this country. My children go to a school where there are armed guards outside. When I visit a Jewish aged care centre, there are armed guards outside. When I send my kids to Jewish sporting clubs, there are police cars out there and police tape. How should we live with this? Why should we live with this? So if I'm not going to speak out, who is? If not now, when? If not me, who? The reality is, this was an attack on Jewish Australians, but this is a threat to every Australian.
To be clear, my question was about the framing of what you are saying. I'm not making assertions. I'm not copying what anybody else is saying.
And Sarah, and you asked me the question, and I gave you my answer.
Good for him, because anyway, she tried to backpedal. No, I didn't. I was just framing the question. It's being framed by others this way. No, you are anti-Semitic by telling a Jew who's running, maybe in the future, that he's politicizing Bondi Beach, which happened 4 days ago. Good for, I don't know Mr. Friedenberg, but good for him. Meanwhile, Vice President Harris is out on the stump trying to sell books, cut number 11.
I urge all of the people who are listening to and watching this interview, this conversation, to read her dissents, because one of the reasons why I was so supportive and advocated for her being on the court is I knew that at this moment in time she would be in the minority, and that we needed someone who had the ability to deconstruct the complexities of law, deconstruct the concepts that we have about what is justice, what is equality, what is fairness, and do it in a way that is grounded in precedent and legal precedent, but in a way that speaks to the American people. I encourage everyone when you...
That's nonsense. And if it had been a real interview, can you tell me which opinions impressed you the most? And maybe which portions of which opinion? That would have been interesting. He didn't do that. Earlier today, President Trump in the Oval signed an executive order on marijuana, cut number 7.
At the same time, the facts compel the federal government to recognize that marijuana can be legitimate in terms of medical applications when carefully administered in some cases. This may include the use as a substitute for addictive and potentially lethal opioid painkillers, and they cause tremendous problems. This can do it in a much lesser way, can make people feel much better that are living through tremendous pain and problems. 40 states and multiple U.S. territories have already recognized the use of medical marijuana. This reclassification order will make it far easier to conduct marijuana-related medical research, allowing us to study benefits, potential dangers, and future treatments. It's going to have a tremendously positive impact, I believe. We're also asking Congress to reconsider its classification of hemp-derived CBD to ensure seniors can access CBD products they have found beneficial for pain and other reasons. Some people are literally dying, and they're dying with tremendous pain, and this can, in many cases, literally stop it. And they have their senses about them, as opposed to painkillers, which don't allow that, don't allow them to die with dignity, frankly. I promise to be the president of common sense, and that is exactly what we're doing. This is really something having to do with common sense. And it's something having to do with the fact that so many people that I respect ask me to do. People that are having problems, big problems. They are having big problems with illness, with cancer in particular. I now want to ask Dr. Oz to say a few words, followed by Dr.
Now, I am of two minds. I'm on both sides of this. I think it's a bad idea to make marijuana available and free and legal, not free, but legal in those 40 states. But I'm also a realist. In those 40 states, and they're all the states I go through, you can get dope. And it's not even a question. It's not prosecuted by the Department of Justice. So we have a conflict of law. The federal law should trump the state law. They could ordered the Department of Justice to shut down all of those dispensaries. They could. But the current multiplicity of approaches makes no sense to me. Then the president followed up with this, cut number 8.
Tell my children, don't take drugs, no drinking, no smoking, and just stay away from drugs. I have been, they would look at me and they said, Dad, would you stop saying that? I would say it every time I looked at it practically. Young Americans are especially...
Share this with the president. I now begun to hector my grandchildren, and if they don't smoke, do drugs, or get on a e-bike, I'll get them a car in college. Not a new one. Not a new one. Wouldn't be prudent, but they got to make it 18 years. No drugs, no smoking, no e-bikes. I think e-bikes, by the way, are far more dangerous than marijuana, and we haven't done anything about e-bikes. I would like to do that. Dr. Oz was at the presser, but he announced a different rule, cut number 10.
American taxpayers should not have to foot the bill for ideologically driven experiments on our nation's youth, and hospitals that we deem must meet the minimum quality standards of care and safety should not be conducting these experiments when we know so little about what is happening with our youth. Now the important part. For these reasons, and I can go on and on, this document, the white paper that Secretary commissions over 300 pages long, we're taking major steps at CMS to stop a funding process that has led to irreversible medical interventions with 2 major actions. The first, we're announcing a notice of proposed rulemaking that ends taxpayer funding of sex-rejecting procedures for children in Medicaid and CHIP, full stop. We don't provide health care to every child, but at 53%, we've got most, and we're not going to let taxpayer money go to hurt these children, and those children will no longer be hurt with this ideology.
No more gender reassignment surgery at hospitals that want federal money. If you perform gender reassignment surgery on minors, you will not get any federal money. That's the spending clause in action, perfectly legit. Secretary Burgum was on Fox Business today with Stu Varney, cut number 9.
This is not the first transfer we've made, but one of many from the Department of Interior on a temporary basis to the Department of War. Theodore Roosevelt in the early 1900s, before Arizona was even a state, came up with what's now called the Roosevelt Reservation, which gives us the ability in law to transfer a little strip of land right along the border. Theodore Roosevelt came up with the words in his order were to stop illegal smuggling into our country. And, of course, what do we have with human trafficking, drug trafficking? And so across the southwestern border, 41% of the distance between the Gulf of America and the Pacific Ocean was interior land. And so we've been in the process of transferring that to the Department of War. If someone steps on that, they're entering a military installation. It helps with us having the authorities to help make sure we keep our border secure.
Let me explain what it is. 41% of the southern border, which I think is about between 2,000 and 3,000 miles long, 40% of it is federal land. Probably held by BLM, might be held by Bureau of Reclamation, could be held by some other federal agencies. The Department of Interior is transferring all of it on a temporary basis to the Department of War so that Pete Hegseth can put troops on there and they can enforce federal law like they would on any military base. If any of you have ever been on a military base, guess what? You can't speed or the MPs will stop you. I learned that long, long ago in Camp Pendleton, Marine Corps base in Southern California, where the fetching Mrs. Hewitt lived on the southeastern corner and I lived up on the northwestern corner, and I once in a while could hornswoggle my way for the right to drive triangle as opposed to 2 sides of the triangle to go see her in Fallbrook. But you can't speed. I mean, you can speed, but the MPs are pretty good. So it's just law enforcement resources of the Department of War will be made available along the entire border. Good for Secretary Burgum. Meanwhile, the inflation numbers came out today, 2.7%. They're not particularly sound because we're missing a month of data, but expert economists were expecting 3.1% Harvard econ professor Ken Rogoff was on CNN today with Kate Boudon, am I saying that? Boudon, and said this, cut number 6.
I mean, I was surprised. It was a better number than anyone was expecting. Look, inflation's been very high. It's stayed high. It has not been coming down. But, you know, people were expecting it to be above 3%. It was well below 3%. I mean, I think the president will take this as good news. The investors will think that interest rates will get cut more. So, you know, it was a positive news. There's no other way to spin it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course it is, because inflation above 2% is baked in. That's what you expect. But anything above 3 is bad, and everything above 4 is really bad. Joe Biden got it up to 9. Remember, transitory inflation due to supply chain. It wasn't transitory. Those 9% price hikes are still out there. The only way to actually drive down prices is to make energy abundant so that the cost of moving everything to stores or delivering your Amazon or your FedEx product is driven down. The only way to drive down prices actually is to increase the supply of the good. That happened with eggs when chickens were no longer being killed because of the avian flu. The supply of eggs went up and the price plummeted. Gas is down around $2.50 most places. I understand a couple states, a couple of jurisdictions below $2. Not California, 4.5 to 5 out there because it's California. And they're not done yet. The tariffs did not result in skyrocketing inflationary prices. And I'm not, as I quote Dr. Arndt, about tariffs. The natural law does not speak to me on tariffs. I am neither pro nor a con against them unless they're national security tariffs. I'm very for national security tariffs. I'm in the ReliefFactor.com studio. I want to remind you, before I forget, take Relief Factor every day. It finally got above freezing inside the Beltway today, so I back out, got my 4 miles. Maybe tomorrow I'll be a little bit stiff because I sat around doing nothing for a week except reading and taking notes and doing the show and driving here and there, but not doing, you know, the minimum is 4. I went out there one day when it was way below 20, and I did 2, and I said, this is for the birds. I'm not doing that. 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. 1-800-4-RELIEF, or head over to their website and find the starter pack for $19.95 at ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com. That's less than $1 a day because it's a 3-week supply. You take 3 a day for the first day, for the first week, 2 a day for the second week, and then you're on the 1 a day like I've been doing for soon to be 13 years. All you have to do is call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, or go to ReliefFactor.com. This is the Song of the Innocents, Herod's massacre after the birth of Jesus, as recorded in the Gospels. The youngest of the Bondi Beach massacre was laid to rest in Australia today, 10 years old. And I began the show by saying, anything can happen anywhere now. And you just got to be prepared. You have to be aware of where you are and how to get out of where you are and what to do if something happens. And do you have it in you to be like the man who stopped the shooter, who was unarmed, snuck up behind a car, tackled him, took the gun away? Real hero. So why do I say that? Because of the Los Angeles plot. And I thought I'd go grab the story from KABC in LA. Federal authorities on Monday announced the arrest of 4 alleged members of an extremist group who are suspected of planning coordinated bombing attacks on New Year's Eve across California, Southern California. Audrey Carroll, Zachary Page, Dante Gatfield, and Tina Lai, all described as the members of the anti-capitalist and anti-government group known as the Turtle Island Liberation Front, were charged with conspiracy and possession of an unregistered destructive device in connection with the alleged plot. They were taken into custody last week in Lucerne Valley, near the desert city of 29 Palms, California, home to USMC base. All 4 are from LA. During a news conference Monday, First Assistant U.S. Attorney Bill Esaili said additional charges are expected to be filed against the group, but authorities said there are more members of the group, but they believe they've arrested all the members who are involved in the bombing plot. Suspects made their first court appearance on Monday. According to the criminal complaint, Carroll provided a confidential human source with an FBI handwritten a handwritten document titled Operation Midnight Sun in November that detailed the plot that described their alleged plans to plant backpacks with IEDs that would be simultaneously detonated at 5 locations targeting 2 U.S. companies at midnight on New Year's Eve. Quote, these bombs were to blow up at the same time at midnight this New Year's Eve. The plan, this is the FBI's assistant director in charge of the LA field office, Akil Davis. The plan stated that the IEDs would be complex pipe bombs, included instructions on how to manufacture the bombs and contained guidance on how to avoid leaving evidence that can be traced back. The government will only say they're logistics companies. They had bought all the bomb-making components to the campsite in the desert, erected a tent, PVC pipes, potassium nitrate, charcoal powder, sulfur powder, various fuses, etc. The participants are alleged to have formed a signal chat known as the Order of the Black Lotus, and they deem themselves a radical faction of the TILF, and they used it to plant. And they're all going to jail for a long time. Now, you'll forget about that in a couple of days, just like you'll forget about the murder of the MIT professor unless it turns out to be connected with the Brown shooting, which is, there are some stories that authorities are leaking evidence of a connection to the MIT professor as a fusion scientist. Also in the foreign press, and you can't really go with the Daily Mail. I don't think you can. They publish anything that comes across their desk. They're not doing a lot of fact checking at the Daily Mail. Foreign government invention in the death of a fusion scientist. That sounds like what Israel's been doing in Iran for a long time to stop the nuclear program before Operation Midnight Sun. Operation Midnight Hammer, President Trump authorized RB-2s to destroy the Iranian nuclear program. So between now and Christmas and now and New Year's, I don't know, I think it's crazy time. It's the wacko time of the year, and bad stuff has happened everywhere. 1-800-520-1234. If you have a comment on whether or not you expect something awful by the end of the year, 1-800-520-1234. Did want to play President Trump last night comparing his first year to the last 4 years, cut number 5.
For the last 4 years, the United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations which took advantage of us at levels never seen before. They flooded your cities and towns with illegal aliens. They decimated your hard-earned savings. They indoctrinated your children with hate for America. They just released a level of violent felons that we had never seen to prey on innocent. They caused war. They caused mayhem. They caused a horrible situation all over the globe. But now you have a president who fights for the law-abiding, hardworking people of our country, the ones who make this nation run, who make this nation work.
You know, I think that argument's going to be persuasive between now and November because he just closed it. If you remember, all through 2024, we were told in mumbling fashion by the increasingly infirm Joe Biden that he needed legislation from Congress to close the border. He didn't. He needed Donald Trump to close the border. When it comes time to make a choice, do you want the chaos back or do you want the common sense control of our borders back? Do you want the weaponization of DOJ or do you want professionals running DOJ? The Biden years were so bad that they may have worked kind of a Hoover effect. Hoover was only president for 4 years, but he kept the Republicans out of office for 20. He was so bad in those 4 years. And the stuff that happened around him, he was really a smart guy, a great engineer. And he tried this and he tried that and he adopted the circumstances of the time. But it didn't matter because when a panic hits and then a contraction begins and then deflation begins up to, well, the statistic I always use, Toledo is where my college roommate Dan lived. They had 90% unemployment in Toledo. 90% unemployment in Toledo. That's what Herbert Hoover left for FDR, and no one ever got over it. Well, right now, people haven't forgotten that. They do want the cost of living to come down, and that's what's going to decide it. After the break, Jan Janura is back. Let me remind you, Angel Tree. Jan is a big supporter of Angel Tree, along with his spouse, Carol. You can be a supporter of Angel Tree if you'll simply head over to HughHewitt.com. We have 7 days till Christmas. We have a list. We're going to try and do 4,000 kids from this program, but I need a few more of you. By the way, we made 100,000 viewers on YouTube. Thank you. Where's my plaque, YouTube? Finally caught up 6 months after Smug. But we want to catch 4,000 kids. We want to help on this show. You can call 888-206-2764. $30 is one kid. Give as much as you can or as little as you can afford. It's all tax deductible. 888-206-2764. Or go to the Angel Tree banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. That music you heard last month, and it means Jan Janura is in the house. That's his theme song. The founder of The Wild Adventure, TWA.US. Many of my listeners have gone on The Wild Adventure. Go check it out, especially if you're a young gun. But we brought Jan back because Thanksgiving's in the rearview mirror, but that means Christmas is ahead of us. And we think Jan's book, Turning Small Talk into Big Talk, is of great help to families and friends that gather. And Jan, Christmas can be even more explosive than Thanksgiving, which is usually just a one-day deal. Christmas can be a longer deal.
Oh, and so many emotions in it. Yep, I agree. And, the book that I wrote is really to bring people together, families, friends, business associates. And years before I wrote the book, I would do this at all of our parties because I hated to get lost in a little chit-chatty conversation that didn't go anywhere. And I came up with this, and everybody's in on the same conversation, and you're kind of the orchestra leader. You're there to, if somebody isn't talking, to bring them in. If somebody's talking too much, to, kind of like slowing down the bassoon section in the orchestra, quiet them down. But it's a great little easy skill to learn. And the other wonderful part of it is we give you 375 great questions to do a table question with. And starting off in chapter 10, we give you the top 25 openers. And just let me give you a sample of a few of those. Number one is, what's your favorite topic to talk about and why? Number two, what was one of the most important days of your life? Number three, what was one of the most surprising days of your life?
Give me number 10.
Number 10 on the great series. What is your favorite holiday and why?
Oh, see, that's a great question.
And then after that, in chapter 11, we have 14 more top 25 topics of family members, what do you say, single people, up right down the line. And I had a friend who told me he liked and used these so much, he took pictures of all of them and he keeps them on his iPhone. So when he goes to or hosts a party or goes to a party, he can come up with an appropriate question right like that if you're not creative enough to do that on your own.
And once you've absorbed the skill set, I told Jan the last time we were together, we have a mutual friend, Marty Sherman, and Marty and I had gotten together for lunch. And instantly, you go to not serious and important stuff, but conversations that not chit-chat, stuff that matters. And Jan, there is, I believe, it's been a while since I read Turning Small Talk into Big Talk, but I believe you tell people how to get derailed conversation back on the rails. Because someone may have had 4 or 5 too many cream de mints and take it off the left side of the table, but you can rescue any situation if you're prepared for it.
Sure. And also, if you realize that you're in charge, just not so in charge that people feel that they're being controlled. And that's easy to do. And we teach you all of that right here, simply all the key skills in turning small talk into big talk.
Now, here's the key question. Does it work for men and for women? And does it work for young and for old?
Yes, I think the hardest one is for young people to step in and take over, because sometimes the older folks there will go, well, what's this? But in some ways, I think they've got a little easier road too, because the older people are so excited that they're engaged in this conversation with them.
Yeah, the first time we did this, it was at your wife Carol's birthday party, and there were probably 30 people there, and you had the table questions planted on the table, and it was fabulous. People don't have to have them printed either. You can have the little list next to you like your friend with the phone, but it really does guide you through the rapids of holiday so that everyone you think people leave feeling better off than they got there?
Oh, so much so. Any time that you can get together with a group of people and have some significant interaction as opposed to just chit chat. I always leave any situation like that so much more fulfilled, as I'm sure you do, don't you?
100%. That's why I recommend Turning Small Talk into Big Talk. It's available at Amazon.com, at BarnesandNoble.com. Turning Small Talk into Big Talk was quite the bestseller when it came out last year. It's still bestseller because it's an evergreen. And if you can't find it in Amazon or Barnes & Noble for some reason, just go to jansbooks.com, JANSBOOKS.com, jansbooks.com. But it's really easiest at Amazon.com. Turning Small Talk into Big Talk. Save your Christmas preparations now. Don't let everything look glorious and the conversation turn into a nightmare. Make it all sparkle with Turning Small Talk into Big Talk. Thank you, Jan Gennaro. Former United States Senator Jim Talent joins me. He is a senior fellow at the Reagan Institute Center for Peace Through Strength. Jim, you and I are about the same age, so you know Norman Podhoretz probably better than I do, or his work at least as well as I do. I wrote yesterday that it may or may not be true, no Podhoretz, no President Reagan, but that it might be true is enough to say what a great American Norman Podhoretz was. What do you think?
Yeah, and he really took commentary in a powerful and important direction. I remember when we were doing welfare reform and they covered that and went to a level of depth about the failures of the Great Society that, few publications did. And, I agree with that statement that it was the intellectuals from the left who defected, from the idea that communism was a good thing, and really supplied a lot of the intellectual heft that floated Ronald Reagan's policy. Of course, Reagan was himself an intellectual from the left. A lot of people don't know that about him, but he was a voracious reader. He absorbed data, and he made his name, as you know, in the 40s when he took the Screen Actors Guild and took it away from the communists.
And drove them out. Now, I'm curious, Jim, they represented the New York left that became the New York right, the neoconservatives. Mm-hmm. Those of us were always just conservative. We read National Review, and that was its own world. But when the ammunition, past the ammunition, that was what commentary brought in. They brought in all the eggheads and smart writers and big guns of the intellectual New York City scene and really supercharged Reagan's campaign. Gene Kirkpatrick's double dictatorships and double standards is one example of it. They really brought the juice.
Well, and you'll notice how much the conservative movement and the Republican Party has benefited from former Democrats and former leftists. I mean, Reagan was one. Donald Trump was never a leftist. And I don't think he was a Democrat, but he certainly wasn't a Republican all those years. And I think part of the reason is all those people who grew up on the left, I mean, they know how to use those tactics effectively. And Podhoretz was certainly one of them. But you're right. Yeah. I mean, his ability to talk about meta-narratives, to really get down deep into the heart of what was at stake was very powerful.
Now I want to switch to the awful killing in Australia, the murders at Brown, the assassination at MIT. Bondi Beach is not connected to the other two. The other two might be connected, according to some leaks from law enforcement tonight. But the Bondi Beach, I think anything can happen anywhere now, and that maybe the guard we had up on 9/12 has slipped, and we ought to put it back up. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I've been listening to your interviews with people on this, and I remember you asking Andy McCarthy if he thought that there was foreign sponsorship or involvement, and I thought when you asked that question, I'd be surprised if there weren't foreign involvement, and specifically Iran. We call Iran the chief state sponsor of terrorism because they sponsor a lot of terrorism. And remember, their power in theater in the Middle East has been broken. I mean, the nuclear program is gone, never to return, and their proxies have been substantially degraded. And Israel is not going to allow them to be rebuilt. Israel has adopted a policy of preemption. And the Iranians are not going to sit there and do nothing. So asymmetric attacks on the West that they sponsor or coordinate or in some loose manner encourage, it would not surprise me at all. If there's no connection here, there will be in incidents in the future.
If we believe any foreign government, Iran in particular, killed the nuclear scientist, the fusion scientist, what does the president do?
With this president, I mean, I think he's going to strike back effectively as a punishment, and he still has a lot of options available, including tightening the oil sanctions in the shadow fleet, which he's doing now to Venezuela. I mean, Iran ships oil with ships that fly under false flags, that change their GPS locators, obviously that carry sanctioned oil. I've been waiting for the president to do that for some time with regard to not just Iranian oil but also Russian oil, and that's an arrow he still has in his quiver. So yeah, there'll be a response.
That fleet will not get through the Caribbean, Jim. Cuba's in real trouble because they're keeping Cuba's lights on, and now that Ghost Fleet, and you can see them, they're just false flag, and they pretend to be legit. They're not legit. They're very old in some cases. They're not going to get there. The embargo is what it is a quarantine, and it's fine by me under the Constitution. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's protecting American interests and American security. He's enforcing the law. And what's the point of sanctions if you don't enforce them? Hey, can I switch? Because there's something I've been wanting to say about this healthcare debate. Can I just make a quick point? And I'm going to defend my former colleagues in the Republican Party, because a lot of people are saying, well, why haven't they replaced Obamacare by now? Okay. So as you know, the only time you can do that is when you control both the House and the Senate and also the presidency. And you have to do it on reconciliation or you'll never get it through the Senate. Well, they've controlled all three on two occasions in the last 15 years, in 2017 and 18, and now in this congressional session. They tried to replace it in 2017, and you will recall that John McCain switched his vote at the last minute and killed the bill in the Senate. You remember that? And this year,
thumbs down.
They were kind of busy. They were busy with other things in reconciliation, like this great tax bill, like all the border provisions, the reconciliation money for the Department of Defense. So when Thune and Johnson say, yeah, we can do more reconciliation bills, I mean, I would urge people to be a little bit patient. I mean, they cannot work miracles. They know they have a window now. And they're going to in the House, they're going to have to hold all these people, which is why they're not going to come cracking down on these four who signed the discharge petition, because they're going to need them down the road. So I'm confident they're going to respond, and everybody's going to have a chance to vote for good health care reform.
Yeah, the leadership might be nice to them, Jim. The leadership might be nice to them. I don't have to be nice to them, and you don't have to be nice to them, but the leadership has to be nice to them. And
no, you don't. You're not going to hear Johnson say anything, but you can say whatever you want, Hugh.
That's it, because, boy, that was a boneheaded move. Jim, I look forward to talking to you before Christmas. I'll wait until next week to wish you a Merry Christmas. Thank you, friend. Follow him at Jim Talon on X from the Reagan Institute. Thank you, Senator. To my friends in New Hampshire, be on the lookout. Law enforcement officials have identified this is ABC News. Have identified a possible suspect in connection with the mass shooting at Brown University, have issued a warrant for the individual's arrest. multiple sources have told ABC News. This comes after multiple sources briefed on the investigation told ABC News that the Brown shooting and the murder of an MIT professor in Brookline, Massachusetts may be linked. The information about a possible connection between the two incidents developed in the last 24 hours. On Saturday afternoon, of course, 2 Brown students were killed, 11 wounded, and the MIT professor killed on Monday. The car they were looking for has been found abandoned in New Hampshire. So, all right, why is he heading north? Why? Canada make any sense to you? But you abandon a car. I do not understand not giving a name and description. If they've got a suspect, they've got a name and a description. I do not understand not giving the name and description. Make and model of the car that he had, they found it. That's good, but I don't know why they didn't tell anyone. They might have found it earlier. Again, not really sure, but now at least I've got to think the FBI is involved. That will be the story of the night. I'll be on Hannity tonight. Our friend is hosting, and we will be, I don't know if we'll be preempted or not. It's hard. Kellyanne Conway's hosting, but I don't know if we'll be preempted by gunfights or captures. But the one thing about Maine and New Hampshire, if you're heading north, everybody's got a gun. Everybody's got a gun, and they got it out. So to that individual, put your hands up. You're not going to walk it. You're going to run into a moose, and you're not going to walk across the Canadian border. They're going to be on the lookout for you. So everybody up there, be aware. The felon, the killer, somewhere in the Granite State now. Unless he took a car and had a prearranged switch out, you don't know. I'm glad to see that they're beginning to develop some seriousness on this. I close by reminding everyone, Angel Tree, we have 7 days till Christmas. It's been a very hard season of joy with all of this chaos and cover-up. But Angel Tree can be reached at 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764. And every $30 is another child off of our list. There are 1.5 million children who have mom and or dad in jail. We can only take care of a few thousand of them. But all of you are helping, whether it's $10 or giant gifts like Jan and Carol gave. Thanks to you all. It's all tax deductible. Thank you for doing it. But you don't do it for the tax deduction. You do it to make a child's Christmas. They get a present that they want with a note from mom or dad saying, hey, this is from me to you. I love you. They get a Bible, and most important of all, they get a connection to Angel Tree that will last throughout the year. The banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com.